Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The grease trap needed cleaning again. Luke Martinez scraped congealed fat from the metal grating, his movements automatic after 3 years of the same routine. The Austin heat had already turned his food truck into a steel oven, and it wasn't even noon. Through the serving window, 6th Street stretched empty except for a homeless guy arguing with a parking meter. His phone buzzed. Another notification from that mental health app the VA kept pushing. He deleted it without reading, same as yesterday, same as the day before. 3 years since Kandahar. 3 years since Mike caught that IED meant for him. Next customer, Luke called out, though nobody stood at the window. Habit. Or maybe talking to ghosts. The envelope tucked above his prep station caught his eye again. IRS, final notice, respond within 10 days or face legal action. Next to it, his phone showed the latest Yelp review. Calling this food would insult actual food. How this place stays open defies both logic and health codes. 1 star, from username Taco Truth-Teller. Luke slammed the spatula down hard enough to make the whole truck shake. The generator chose that moment to die with a wheeze that sounded almost human. Perfect. He kicked the generator. Pain shot through his foot. The sole of his left shoe had finally worn through. Mike's Nikes, the ones he'd shipped from Bagram 2 weeks before the patrol. For when you get back to the world, brother. Can't have you serving tacos in combat boots. The generator stayed dead. By 9 p.m., Luke had served exactly 3 customers. 2 complained about cold food. The third asked if he accepted cryptocurrency, then left without ordering when Luke just stared at him. He counted the till, $43 and change. Rent was due in 4 days. $800 he didn't have. He pulled into the abandoned North Cross Mall parking lot, his usual spot when he couldn't face the apartment. The place had been dead for 5 years, a concrete graveyard of failed retail dreams. Perfect match for his mood. The truck's headlights swept across overflowing dumpsters as he parked. Something moved behind them, probably raccoons. Austin had more raccoons than people these days. Luke killed the engine and sat in the dark, letting the silence press against his eardrums. This was the part where Mike would crack some terrible joke, make everything bearable. But Mike wasn't here. Mike was nowhere. A sound broke through his self-pity, not quite crying, more like wounded breathing. He grabbed the flashlight from under his seat, the heavy mag light that doubled as a weapon. Old habits. Behind the dumpster, pressed against the graffiti-covered wall, sat a child. Luke's brain struggled to process what his eyes reported. Purple skin, not bruised purple, but lavender like those fancy macarons his ex-girlfriend used to buy. The kid's eyes caught the flashlight beam and reflected gold, not red like a normal person's. She wore something that looked like aluminum foil had mated with a hospital gown, torn at the shoulder and stained with something dark. Blood. Her feet were bleeding. Jesus! Luke dropped to one knee, keeping his distance. The kid pressed harder against the wall, making that not crying sound again. Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you. She said something in a language that sounded like water running over rocks. Her feet left bloody prints on the concrete, cuts from broken glass that littered the lot. Luke looked at those feet, small and purple and wrong and bleeding, and his hands moved without consulting his brain. He untied his left shoe, then his right. The Nikes with the worn soles and the coffee stain on the left toe. Mike's last gift. Here. He held them out like an offering. They're way too big, but better than nothing. The child tilted her head, studying him with those impossible golden eyes. She reached out slowly, her hand so small it looked like a violet flower against the dirty white shoes. Luke helped her put them on, careful not to touch the cuts. The shoes swallowed her feet. She maybe came up to his waist, couldn't be more than 7 or 8. When he finished tying the laces tight as they'd go, she placed her tiny hand over her heart. Zarhai Naveth. The words hung in the air like a bell's echo. Something in Luke's chest responded, a warmth he hadn't felt in 3 years. "You're welcome," he said, hoping that's what she meant. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up." She followed him to the truck, stumbling in the oversized shoes. Under the interior lights, she looked even more impossible. Her skin had a faint shimmer, like someone had mixed pearl dust into purple paint. The symbols on her tunic thing weren't printed. They seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Luke grabbed the first aid kit, then hesitated. This might sting. She watched him clean her feet with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. No crying, no flinching, just those gold eyes tracking his every movement. When he finished bandaging the worst cuts, her stomach growled loud enough to echo in the truck. Hungry? He didn't wait for an answer, firing up the portable propane burner he'd bought when the generator first started acting up. "Hope you like tacos. It's all I got." She devoured 7 tacos in 10 minutes, eating with a desperation that made his chest tight. Purple skin or not, hungry was hungry. She licked her fingers clean, then drew something in the spilled salsa on the counter, circles within circles, connected by curved lines. "That's..." Luke studied the pattern. "Are those stars?" She met his eyes and nodded, the first human gesture she'd made. Luke's phone had no signal. The mall was a dead zone, so calling anyone would have to wait. Child services would be closed anyway. The kid yawned, swaying on the stool. "Right, okay." He ran his hand through his hair. "You can crash at my place tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out whatever this is." His apartment sat above a mechanic's garage in East Austin, the kind of place where nobody asked questions if you paid cash on time. The kid fell asleep in the truck during the drive, curled up on the passenger seat wearing his army jacket like a blanket. Luke carried her up the stairs, amazed at how light she felt, like her bones were hollow, built for somewhere with less gravity. He put her on the couch, Mike's shoes still on her feet because taking them off felt wrong somehow. She mumbled something in that water rock language. Her hand found his, gripping with surprising strength. "Zarhai." "Yeah, kid, whatever that means." He dozed in the recliner, waking every hour to check she was still breathing. Around 3 a.m., his phone went haywire, screen flashing random colors, apps opening and closing on their own. It settled after a minute, but the battery had drained from full to 5%. The kid was sitting up, watching him. "Bad dream?" She shook her head, then pointed at his phone and made a gesture he interpreted as sorry. "You did that?" Luke kept his voice level. "How?" She shrugged, a perfectly human gesture that looked wrong on her purple shoulders. Then she lay back down, pulling the army jacket up to her chin. Dawn came gray and humid. Luke made coffee with the ancient Mr. Coffee that survived 3 apartments and 1 divorce. The kid woke when the smell hit, nose twitching like a cat's. "Coffee's probably bad for whatever you are." He poured her orange juice instead. She sniffed it suspiciously, then drained the glass in one go. While she explored the apartment, touching everything with careful fingers, Luke tried his phone. Still dead. He'd have to use the landline at the garage to call social services. The kid had found his box of Mike's stuff, the one he'd never opened. She held up a photo. Him and Mike at Fort Hood, both grinning like idiots after basic training. "That's Mike." The words came out rough. "He died." She studied the photo, then looked at Luke's feet, bare except for holy socks. She pointed at the shoes she wore, then at the photo. "Yeah, those were his." She placed the photo carefully back in the box, then did something that broke him a little. She hugged his leg, the only part of him she could reach. Her arms barely made it around his calf. The floor started vibrating, not like an earthquake, more like standing next to a massive subwoofer. Luke's coffee mug walked itself off the counter and shattered. Car alarms screamed from the street below. The kid let go of his leg and ran to the window. Luke followed. The sky was wrong. Where there should have been morning clouds hung shapes that hurt to process, organic and mechanical at once, like someone had built spaceships from giant jellyfish. Tentacle-like appendages that had to be engines pulsed with light that wasn't quite blue, wasn't quite purple. Each ship dwarfed downtown Austin's skyline. Luke counted 20, then 40, then stopped counting. His neighbor's TV blared through the thin walls. Repeat, this is not a drill. Unknown aircraft have appeared over major cities worldwide. The president has... The sound cut off. Every screen visible from his window, phones, billboards, the bank sign across the street, displayed the same message in perfect, impossible English. People of Earth, we are the Vorthani 7th Fleet. Return the human Luke Martinez who harbors our lost child. You have 1 hour. Compliance ensures peace. Resistance ensures extinction. Luke read his name 3 times before his brain accepted it. Oh shit. The kid, Anira, his mind supplied, though she'd never told him that, tugged his shirt. When he looked down, she'd drawn something on his palm with her finger, the same symbol from the salsa, from her tunic. She pointed at herself, then at the ships, then made a gesture he understood perfectly. Family. Those are your people? She nodded. And they think I kidnapped you? She shook her head, then placed her hand over her heart again. Zarhai Naveth. Before Luke could ask what that meant, his door exploded inward. Military personnel flooded his apartment. Full tactical gear, weapons that looked fresh from a Pentagon wet dream. They moved like water, covering every angle in seconds. Luke Martinez? The voice belonged to a man with more stars on his collar than Luke had ever seen in person. General Thompson, Joint Chiefs, son, you just became the most important human in history. Luke raised his hand slowly. I didn't. She was hurt. I just gave her my shoes. Thompson's expression cycled through several emotions before landing on exhausted. That girl upstairs? She's why we're not already space dust. And somehow, Mr. Martinez, you've been designated her guardian by about 50,000 alien warships. 50,000? That's just what we can see. Satellites show more dropping out of somewhere every minute. Thompson holstered his sidearm. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to come with us. You're going to bring the girl. And you're going to explain to the nice aliens that this is all a misunderstanding before they turn Earth into a parking lot. Anira stepped between Luke and the general, moving with a grace that belonged to something other than a child. She spoke for the first time in English, her accent like music played in minor keys. No misunderstanding. He is Zarhai, guardian until time ends. I have spoken it in the old words, cannot be undone. Thompson stared at her. You speak English. I speak all languages. I am Villani. I remember everything. She looked up at Luke with those golden eyes. Even kindness from stranger who had nothing to give but still gave everything. Luke's bare feet were cold on the cracked linoleum. Outside, the jellyfish ships pulsed with patient menace. The entire United States military waited for him to say something. I'm going to need my shoes back. Anira shook her head, pressing the oversized Nikes harder against the floor. Shoes stay with me. They are part of the bond now. Thompson's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. Miss Anira, your people are requesting Mr. Martinez. We need to move. Now. Not requesting. Anira's golden eyes darkened to amber. Demanding. But they demand wrong thing. They want their Villani back. I am no longer just theirs. Luke's brain struggled to process the last 10 minutes. Alien invasion. Check. 7-year-old alien girl who'd apparently adopted him. Check. The entire U.S. military in his crappy apartment. Check. His bare feet freezing on the linoleum while the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Just another Tuesday in Austin. General, Luke said, maybe we should... The air in his apartment rippled like summer heat off asphalt. A woman materialized next to his broken coffee maker, 7.5 feet of controlled violence wrapped in form-fitting armor that seemed to absorb light. Her skin was deeper purple than Anira's, closer to eggplant, with a network of scars across her exposed arms that told stories Luke recognized. Combat scars, survivor scars. Every soldier in the room raised their weapons. Lower your primitive projectiles before I lower them permanently. Her voice carried the kind of authority that came from winning arguments with violence. Her eyes, gold like Anira's but harder, like amber with insects trapped inside, swept the room and landed on Luke. You are the one who contaminated our Villani with your local toxins? If you mean tacos, then yeah. Luke stepped forward, putting himself between the woman and Anira. She was starving. She ate 7 of them. The woman's expression shifted, just a fraction. She ate willingly? She hasn't eaten in 3 days. The Scorthians... She cut herself off, noticed Anira peeking around Luke's leg. Something in those hard eyes cracked. Vellani, I failed you. You didn't fail, Zaya. Anira moved past Luke, reached up toward the giant woman. The Scorthians were clever, used pathway protocols you taught me, not your fault. Zaya dropped to one knee, still towering over the child. She pulled Anira into an embrace that looked like it could crush steel, but Anira just buried her face in the woman's shoulder. Commander Zaya. Thompson lowered his weapon but didn't holster it. I'm General Thompson. We need to discuss. You need to evacuate this building. Zaya stood, lifting Anira effortlessly. The 7th Fleet's patience extends exactly 43 more minutes. Admiral Korthak will speak only to the Zarhai. The what now? Thompson asked. Him. Zaya pointed at Luke, the fool who bound himself to the air of memories. Do you have any concept what you've done, human? I gave a kid my shoes. Luke crossed his arms, tired of feeling defensive about basic decency. She was bleeding. Her feet were cut up. What was I supposed to do? Zaya studied him like he was a puzzle missing pieces. On 10,000 worlds across 40,000 colonies, not one being would have looked twice at an abandoned Villani. They're too valuable, too dangerous to harbor. The political implications alone. She stopped. You truly didn't know what she was. Lady, I don't even know what I am anymore. Luke gestured at his apartment, now crowded with soldiers and an alien commander. Yesterday I was failing at selling tacos. Today apparently I'm, what, some kind of space dad? Zarhai, Anira corrected, still clinging to Zaya. Guardian until time ends. More than father, more than protector. You are... She switched to her liquid language, then back to English, frustrated. Your words are insufficient. Zaya set Anira down, moved closer to Luke. She had to duck slightly to avoid the ceiling fan. Do you understand the implications? By accepting her oath, you've bound your entire genetic line to her protection. If she dies under your care, every human, your entire species, will be marked Torvani, honor lost. And that means extinction, not as punishment, as mercy. In our culture, to live without honor is worse than death. We would glass your planet to spare you that fate. The room went silent except for the distant rumble of alien engines. No pressure then. Luke ran his hand through his hair. Look, there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't accept anything. She said something in her language. Zarhai Naveth, Anira interrupted. The old words, from before the Empire, before the colonies. Words that change reality when spoken with true intent. The child chose you. Zaya's tone held something between respect and bewilderment. A Villani, keeper of 40,000 worlds locations, born once per millennium, chose a random human who sells primitive food from a wheeled container. Hey, my truck's not that bad. It smells like rancid meat and despair. That's just the Austin humidity. Thompson cleared his throat. If we could focus on the invasion. Zaya's head snapped toward him. Not invasion. Recovery mission. Return the Villani. We leave. Keeper and... She shrugged, a gesture that looked wrong on someone who could probably bench press a sedan. The 7th Fleet has glass systems for less. She's a child, Luke said. You're talking about her like she's property. She's the property of 40 trillion souls. Zaya's voice could have frozen helium. Without her memories, 60% of our empire loses contact. Supply lines fail. Colonies starve. Billions die in the dark between stars because they can't find their way home. Luke felt Anira's small hand slip into his. Her fingers trembled. But she's also just a kid who was scared and alone and hurt. He squeezed her hand. Right? Zaya's expression did something complicated. The Scorthians took her during treaty negotiations, drugged her, abandoned her here, assuming your primitive species would kill her out of fear. Without the Villani, we lose our advantage. The Scorthians claim the abandoned colonies. Their dying world gets resources while ours fragments into chaos. Dying world? Talon, poisoned by their own wars. 70% child mortality. Zaya's tone held no sympathy. They chose destruction. Now they seek to steal our salvation. 70%? Luke thought of the photos from Afghanistan, kids playing in rubble. Their children are dying. Irrelevant. They made their choice. Children don't choose wars. Zaya went still, not human stillness. The absolute motionlessness of a predator deciding whether to strike. You defend our enemies? I defend kids, all kids, even the ones whose parents are assholes. This sentimentality will get your species killed. Maybe, but it's also why Anira chose me instead of letting herself die in that parking lot. Anira tugged Luke's hand. Zaya doesn't understand. She was raised by protocols, not parents. Something flickered across Zaya's scarred face. The Villani speaks truth. I was orphaned at 3 cycles. The military raised me. Protocols and procedures, not... She gestured vaguely at Luke and Anira's joined hands. Whatever this is, it's called giving a damn about someone other than yourself. I give a damn about 40 trillion souls. That's numbers. I'm talking about people, individual people like her. Luke nodded at Anira. When's the last time someone asked what she wants? She's 7 cycles old. I want to stay with Luke. Anira's voice carried surprising authority. The coordinates in my head won't fade. The empire won't fall. But I choose my guardian, and I choose him. Thompson's radio crackled. General, the aliens are broadcasting again. They want Martinez at these coordinates. He rattled off numbers that meant nothing to Luke. That's your food truck, Anira said. They're being polite. First contact at a neutral location. My truck's neutral. It's yours, Zaya said. Therefore, it's now sovereign territory of the Zarhai. Technically, you outrank me there. I outrank a 7-foot purple space Amazon? 7.5 feet. And yes, within those 4 walls, you speak with the authority of the Villani's guardian. Even Admiral Korthak must respect that. Luke looked around his ruined apartment at the soldiers pretending they weren't terrified, at the child whose hand hadn't left his, at the warrior woman who seemed personally offended by his existence. I'm going to need pants and shoes and maybe someone to explain what the hell I'm supposed to say to prevent our extinction. The truth, Anira said. Tell them the truth. Which is, you saw a hurt child and helped. That's all. That's everything. Zaya made a sound that might have been a laugh if laughs could cut glass. That won't satisfy the fleet. Then the fleet can go Language, Anira interrupted. I'm 7. You're an alien supercomputer who holds the fate of trillions in your head. Still 7. Still shouldn't hear human expletives. Thompson stepped forward. Mr. Martinez, we need to move. Every minute we delay, the chance of misunderstanding increases. The president is asking. The president can wait. Luke looked at Zaya. You're military. You follow orders. But you're also someone who's been watching over this kid. So tell me straight, what are we walking into? Zaya's scarred hands flexed. Admiral Korthak is my superior, Anira's biological father. He's also the hero of 17 campaigns and has never lost a negotiation or a battle. He will want his daughter back. And if I say no, then you'll negotiate with him, and he'll win. He always wins. What if I don't negotiate? What if I just tell him to take her and go? Then you break the Zarhai bond. Anira dies, not physically, but spiritually. A Villani rejected by their chosen guardian cannot survive. We've seen it happen. Zaya's voice dropped. Once, the guardian thought it was kindness to release them. The child lasted 17 days. Luke's stomach turned to ice. So I'm trapped. You trapped yourself the moment you showed kindness to something you didn't understand. Zaya moved toward the door. Welcome to the universe, Luke Martinez. It's vast, cold, and doesn't care about your good intentions. Sounds like Afghanistan, Luke muttered. Zaya stopped. You were a warrior? Marine. 3 tours. How many did you lose? Too many. Saved my life. Luke touched his bare chest where his tags should be. Died because I zigged when I should have zagged. The survivor's burden. Zaya's voice held unexpected understanding. I carry 43 names, squad members who died following my orders. How do you live with it? I protect her. She nodded at Anira. Each life saved balances one lost. Imperfect mathematics, but it allows sleep. Luke looked at the child still holding his hand. And if protecting her costs my entire world, then you'll carry 8 billion names instead of 1. Zaya opened the door. The truck, 20 minutes. Come alone except for the Villani. I thought you said 43 minutes. I lied. You have 15 now. She vanished, not dramatically, just there 1 second, gone the next. Thompson immediately started barking orders. Martinez needs clothes, shoes, someone get. I have clothes in the truck, Luke said, and I'm keeping these shoes. He looked down at his ridiculous holy socks. They're my lucky socks now. This isn't a joke, son. No, it's not. Luke picked up Anira, who weighed nothing, like holding a bird. It's the end of the world unless I figure out how to out-negotiate someone who's never lost. He looked at the child. Any advice? Don't negotiate. You just said he always wins negotiations. Exactly. Anira smiled, and for the first time, she looked like what she was, a scared 7-year-old trying to be brave. So don't play his game. Play yours. I don't have a game. I have a food truck and a dead generator. You have kindness. In all the galaxy, across all the species I carry in my memory, kindness is the rarest element. She touched his face with one small purple hand. That's why I chose you. Not because you gave me shoes, because you had nothing and gave anyway. Luke's throat tightened. Kid, that's not. 14 minutes, Thompson interrupted. We need to move. They descended the stairs, Anira still in Luke's arms. Outside, the jellyfish ships had descended lower, their tentacle engines creating aurora patterns in the morning sky. Every person in Austin had to be watching. Hell, every person on Earth. The convoy to his food truck consisted of 12 vehicles, sirens silent but lights flashing. They passed crowds of people standing on sidewalks, holding phones up to record the ships. Some were crying, some praying, most just stared. They're beautiful, Luke said. surprising himself. The ships? Anira asked. The people, facing the end and still standing there, recording it for posterity that might not exist. He thought of Mike, always taking photos on patrol. Humans are idiots, but we're brave idiots. They pulled up to his truck. Someone had cleared a 3-block radius, military barriers, snipers on roofs, and in the center, his beat-up Last Chance Tacos truck with its faded paint and crooked sign. "Your chariot awaits," Thompson said dryly. Luke set Anira down, fished his keys from his pocket. The truck door creaked when he opened it. He'd been meaning to oil those hinges for 2 years. Inside, everything was exactly as he'd left it. Congealed grease, dead generator, $43 in the till. The photo of him and Mike still tucked above the prep station. "This is your kingdom?" Anira asked, climbing onto the counter. "This is my failure." Luke grabbed the spare shirt from under the sink, Marine's logo, 3 tours of sweat baked into the fabric. "But it's my failure." Light filled the truck, not harsh but warm like sunset through honey. Zaya materialized, but she wasn't alone. A figure stood beside her, and Luke's brain simply refused to process what he was seeing. Admiral Korthak stood 8 feet tall, built like someone had carved a warrior from purple granite and decided to add more warrior. Scars covered every visible inch of skin, creating patterns that looked deliberate, artistic. His eyes were gold like Anira's but ancient, holding the weight of campaigns Luke couldn't imagine. "You are the human who stole my daughter." The words hit like physical blows. Luke's knees wanted to buckle, but he locked them straight. Marines didn't kneel. "I didn't steal anyone. I found her. Helped her." "You bound her with the old words." "She bound me. I just gave her shoes." Korthak moved into the truck, having to bend nearly double. The space that felt cramped with 3 people now felt like a coffin. "Show me these shoes." Anira raised 1 foot, the Nike ridiculous on her small frame. "Mike's shoes, his battle brother who died. Luke gave me his last gift." Something shifted in Korthak's ancient eyes. "A warrior's gift." "A friend's gift," Luke corrected. "Mike would have done the same. This Mike, he saved your life. Pushed me out of the way of an IED. Caught shrapnel that was meant for me." Luke's voice stayed steady through years of practice. "Died making jokes about how I'd owe him tacos forever. An honorable death. A waste." Luke met those golden eyes. "Like this will be if we don't figure out something better than threats and extinction." Korthak laughed, a sound like tectonic plates grinding. "You would lecture me on waste? Your species barely manages not to destroy itself daily." "Yeah, we're idiots, but we're trying, and right now I'm trying to keep your daughter safe while also not letting my species die. Help me out here." "Return her. Leave Earth under our protection. Live." "Can't do that." "The Zarhai bond." "Screw the bond." Luke felt Anira stiffen beside him. "I'm talking about what's right. She chose me. I don't understand why, but she did. You take her against her will, bond or no bond, and you're just another asshole parent who thinks they know better." The truck's air grew thick, hard to breathe. Korthak's hand moved to something at his hip that looked like a weapon designed by someone who thought normal weapons weren't quite horrible enough. "You dare—" "Dad." Anira's voice cut through the tension. "He's right." Korthak's hand froze on the weapon. "Velani, you are 7 cycles old. You cannot—" "I remember everything, Father. Every Velani before me. Every choice that led to exile, to death, to isolation." Anira's golden eyes held centuries of memory in a child's face. "They all chose duty. I choose differently. The Scorthians will come regardless." Anira climbed down from the counter, stood between Luke and her father, a purple child in oversized shoes, mediating between giants. Warlord Grax is already in system. His fleet jumped behind the third moon 17 minutes ago. Zaya's entire body went rigid. Impossible. Our sensors see what they expect to see. Anira touched the truck's wall, and somehow Luke knew she was feeling every ship, every presence in the solar system. The Scorthians learned. They're not coming to negotiate. They're coming to take me. Then we leave, Korthak said. Now, you leave. Earth burns from Scorthian weapons. You stay and fight. Earth burns from the crossfire. Anira looked up at Luke. Unless what? Luke asked, though his stomach already knew this was going to be bad. Unless the Zarhai speaks for Earth. Korthak's laugh could have curdled milk. This primitive speaks for his world? They don't even have unified government. They have him. Anira's voice carried absolute certainty. And he has me, and I have the coordinates, the triangle of necessity. Luke's phone, somehow still working despite the alien interference, buzzed with an emergency alert. He read it aloud. Unknown vessels detected near lunar orbit. President addressing the nation in 5 minutes. 3 minutes, Anira corrected. Grax likes dramatic timing. You know him? Luke asked. I know his type. Lost his mate and 3 children to the poisoning of Talon. Leads through rage disguised as logic. Will destroy anything to save his remaining people. She looked at her father. Sound familiar? Korthak's scarred face tightened. I never... You glassed 3 systems hunting for me. Uninhabited systems. After you verified they were uninhabited, but you would have burned them anyway. Anira's tone held no judgment, just fact. Grax won't verify. He'll demand me. When refused, he'll start killing. Cities first, to make a point. Then we give you to... Zaya stopped herself, but the words hung there. To save Earth? Luke finished. No. Your sentimentality, my choice. Luke pulled out the photo of Mike, set it on the counter where everyone could see it. 3 years ago, this man died saving me. Not because I was important or special or the keeper of anything, because I was his friend and that was enough. He looked at each alien in turn. I couldn't save him, but I can save her. And if that means your empires fall, if that means the coordinates are lost, if that means my world burns, then at least it burns for something better than fear. The truck fell silent except for the hum of the Vorthani ships above. You would die for principle? Korthak asked. I'd die for her. Luke nodded at Anira. The principle's just a bonus. The Scorthians will... The air screamed. Not an alarm. The actual air, protesting as something tore through it. A ship materialized above the truck, smaller than the Vorthani vessels but wrong in ways that made Luke's eyes water. It looked like someone had built a spacecraft from broken glass and suffering. A figure teleported into the truck. No warm light, just suddenly there. Warlord Grax stood 7 feet tall, his skin a purple so dark it absorbed light. Where Korthak had scars, Grax had burns, chemical burns that created a topography of loss across his body. His eyes weren't gold but black, with gold flecks like a reversed night sky. Admiral, Commander, Velani. His voice sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. And the primitive who thinks he can harbor what he doesn't understand. Warlord, Korthak said carefully, you violate treaty by entering this system. You violated treaty by losing the Velani. Grax studied Anira with those reversed star eyes. She's smaller than my youngest was. I'm sorry about your children, Anira said. Grax went still. Not the predator stillness Zaya had shown, but the stillness of someone hit by unexpected pain. You know nothing of loss, Keeper. I know everything of loss. Every Velani before me lost something. Family, friends, freedom. She took a step toward him. Your youngest was named Tayla. She liked to sing. How? The coordinates aren't just locations, they're memories. Every world tells its story through me. Tears ran down Anira's purple cheeks. Talon sang once, before the poisoning, before the wars. I remember its song. Lies. Truth. Anira hummed something that shouldn't have been beautiful but was, notes that spoke of green skies and silver seas, of children playing in gardens that no longer existed. Grax made a sound, not quite sob, not quite roar. Give me the coordinates to the Eden worlds. Let me save what remains of my people. I can't give what I am. Anira touched her chest. They're written in my DNA, encoded in every cell. To extract them would kill me. Then you'll come with me. No, Luke said. Grax's attention snapped to him like a whip crack. You have no authority here, primitive. Actually, I do. Luke pointed at his truck's crooked sign. You're in my truck. According to about 6 different alien laws I had explained to me very quickly, this is sovereign territory of the Zarhai. You want to take her, you go through me. Gladly. Grax reached for his weapon, something that looked like it could unmake matter at the molecular level. I challenge you to Tornval. Everyone froze. Even the air seemed to pause. What did you say? Grax's voice had dropped to subsonic levels. Luke's mouth had apparently decided to continue without consulting his brain. Tornval. Ritual combat for the right to Anira. That's a thing, right? He looked at Zaya, who appeared to be having a stroke. You mentioned it. Ancient law. Still binding. You cannot, Korthak said. You don't understand. He is Zarhai, Anira interrupted, her child's voice carrying adult authority. He can speak the challenge. Grax laughed, broken glass in a blender. You would face me in combat? You can barely stand in my presence. Yeah, I'm terrified. Luke's hands shook, but his voice stayed steady. But I'm still challenging you, unless you're afraid of a primitive. The insult landed like Luke had hoped. Grax's burned face darkened. Terms, he spat. Tornval requires terms. If I win, you leave. Earth remains neutral territory. The Vorthani and Scorthians work together to find another solution for Tylon. Share technology, share resources, share hope instead of hoarding it. And when you lose, if I lose, Anira goes with you, willingly. She'll help find the Eden worlds for your people. No, Zaya and Korthak said simultaneously. Her choice, Luke said, not looking away from Grax, but only if she chooses. No force, no coercion. She helps because she wants to, or not at all. Grax considered this. You would trust the fate of your world to a child's decision. I trust her more than I trust any adult in this truck. Luke, Anira whispered, you don't know what Tornval means. The combat is to the death, Luke finished. Yeah, I figured. Most things with aliens seem to be... You figured? Zaya's voice cracked. You figured? Look, I've been making this up as I go since yesterday. Why stop now? This is insane, Thompson's voice crackled through someone's radio. Apparently, the general had been listening. Mr. Martinez, stand down. We'll find another... Luke pulled the battery from his phone, cutting the connection. Sorry, General. My truck, my rules. Grax stepped forward. I accept your challenge, Primitive. Tomorrow's dawn, by your planet's reckoning. The arena will be... Here, Luke said. My truck, my turf. That space barely holds 4 beings. Then we'll make it work. Unless you need more room to lose. Grax's hand twitched toward his weapon again. You dare much for someone about to die. I dare much for someone with nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Luke finally looked at Anira. That okay with you, kid? She threw herself at his legs, hugging tight. You beautiful, stupid, brave human. That's the second time someone's called me that today. Because it's true. She looked up at him, golden eyes bright with tears. You know you can't win physical combat. Good thing Tornval isn't always physical. Luke glanced at Zaya. Right? Historical precedents include music, mathematics, even gardening. Zaya's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You were listening. I'm a Marine. We're dumb, not deaf. He looked back at Grax. Tomorrow's dawn. My truck. Tornval until one yields or dies. Witnessed, Korthak said formally, though he looked like he'd swallowed something rotten. The challenge is spoken and accepted. Witnessed, Zaya echoed. Witnessed, Anira whispered. Grax smiled, an expression that belonged on something that ate hope. Enjoy your last night, Primitive. Tomorrow, your world learns the price of defiance. He vanished, taking the wrongness with him. Luke's knees finally gave out. He sat hard on the floor of his truck, surrounded by aliens and the smell of old grease. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen, Zaya said. Can it be both? Luke's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Also, someone please tell me Tornval actually can be non-physical combat. It can, Korthak said slowly, but the challenge chooses the form, and Grax will choose something that ensures your death. Then I'll have to be creative. Luke looked at the photo of Mike. Sorry, brother. Looks like I might be seeing you sooner than planned. No. Anira's voice held iron. You'll win. Kid, I appreciate the confidence, but you'll win because you have something Grax doesn't. She smiled, and for the first time since he'd found her, she looked like she believed it. You have us. The Tornval forbids interference, Korthak warned. Not interference, preparation. Anira looked at her father, then at Zaya. We have one night to teach him everything. Combat, law, psychology, cuisine. Cuisine, Luke asked. You're going to challenge him to a cooking battle. I'm what now? Tornval through culinary superiority. It's been done. Once. On Merid 400 cycles ago. Anira's eyes went distant, accessing memories not her own. The challenger was expected to die. Instead, he created something that made his enemy weep from beauty. I make tacos. They're not exactly beautiful. They fed me when I was starving, Anira said simply. That's the most beautiful thing in any world. Zaya knelt beside Luke, and for once her expression held something other than disdain. You truly mean to go through with this insanity? Someone recently told me the universe is vast, cold, and doesn't care about good intentions. Luke met her gold eyes. Maybe it's time someone taught it to. She laughed, actually laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. You're going to die tomorrow. Probably. And you're smiling. Mike always said I was an idiot. Luke stood, his legs steadier now. But he also said idiots change the world because they don't know they can't. This Mike sounds wise. He was 23 and thought mixing energy drinks with instant coffee was cuisine. Luke picked up Anira, who wrapped her arms around his neck. But yeah, he was wise about things that mattered. Korthak moved toward the door, having to contort himself to exit. One night to prepare for Tornval. Warlord Grax has never lost personal combat. Neither have I, Luke said. You've been in personal combat? Once. Bar fight in Tijuana. I threw up on the other guy's shoes and he slipped in it. Luke shrugged. Victory's victory. For the first time since appearing, Admiral Korthak smiled. It transformed his scarred face from terrifying to merely concerning. Perhaps you'll survive long enough to make this interesting. That's the plan. Well, that and not dying. The two are often mutually exclusive, Zaya said. Then I'll be the exception. As the aliens prepared to leave, to plan, to strategize, to do whatever aliens did the night before potential apocalypse, Anira whispered in Luke's ear, You gave me shoes when you had nothing. Tomorrow the galaxy learns what that means. What does it mean? Everything. The word hung in the air as Act 2 ended, the promise of tomorrow's battle casting shadows that had nothing to do with the ships above. Luke Martinez, failed taco vendor and accidental space dad, had less than 12 hours to figure out how to win an impossible fight. But he'd done impossible before. Every Marine had. Time to do it again. The night before dying had a certain clarity to it. Luke stood in his food truck at 3 a.m., surrounded by ingredients that might be his last meal. Zaya sat cross-legged on his prep counter, all 7.5 feet of her folded into impossible angles, reading from a holographic display that hurt to look at directly. Anira dozed against his shoulder, occasionally murmuring coordinates in her sleep, numbers that represented worlds Luke would never see. The Meridani fighter used fermented kelp, Zaya said, scrolling through the data, created umami levels that triggered evolutionary memories of home oceans. Great. I'll just pop down to the alien kelp store. Luke checked his inventory again. Tortillas, check. 3 types of peppers, check. The last of his good tequila that he'd been saving for. Well, for never. I cook Mexican food, street food, nothing that makes people contemplate their evolutionary memories. You make food that kept a traumatized Villani eating when nothing else would. Zaya's golden eyes reflected the hologram's light. That's not nothing. It's tacos. It's connection. She closed the display with a gesture. Grax hasn't connected to anything since his family died. He consumes nutrients, not food, sustains the body while the soul starves. Luke's hands paused in their prep work. You sound like you know him. We served together once, before the Talon campaigns. He laughed then. Zaya's scarred fingers traced patterns on the metal counter. His youngest daughter would climb on his shoulders during diplomatic functions. He'd pretend to be annoyed, but everyone could see his pride. What happened to them? Chemical weapons their own people deployed 50 cycles ago. Time-delayed toxins that activated when the peace accords were signed. Poetic justice, some called it. The generation that chose peace paying for the wars their parents started. Her voice carried no emotion, which somehow made it worse. Grax held his youngest while she died, Taylor. She sang until her lungs crystallized. Luke's throat tightened. He looked at Anira, sleeping peacefully against his shoulder. Jesus, your deity has no power here, just chemistry and consequence. Zaya shifted, the counter groaning under her weight. He'll kill you tomorrow, cleanly if you're lucky, but he'll kill you. Thanks for the pep talk. Unless... Luke waited, but Zaya just stared at him with those impossible eyes. Unless what? Unless you make him remember who he was before the rage. She pulled something from her armor, a small vial filled with iridescent liquid. Thraven honey, from before our world's new war. 1 drop makes any dish sing with memory. That's cheating. That's survival. She placed the vial in his hand. Your Marines had a saying, adapt, improvise, overcome. How do you know Marine sayings? I've been researching your species all night. Fascinating contradictions. You wage war while dreaming of peace. You destroy while creating. You hate while loving. She tilted her head. You're teaching a soldier raised on protocols what it means to choose. I'm not teaching anything. I'm just trying not to die tomorrow. Today. She pointed at the clock. Dawn in 3 hours. Anira stirred, her small hand gripping Luke's shirt. Not sleeping, listening, memorizing. Memorizing what? Luke asked. This moment. You, Zaya, the smell of your truck, the sound of earth insects outside. Her golden eyes opened, too ancient for her face. If you die, I want to remember everything. The coordinates I carry are just numbers. But this is life. I'm not going to die. Statistical probability suggests, screw statistics. Luke set down his knife harder than necessary. I survived 3 tours, a divorce, Mike dying, and that food poisoning incident in Juarez. I'm not dying to some alien warlord with anger management issues. Bravado doesn't change reality, Zaya said. No, but it makes facing it easier. Luke pulled out the photo of Mike, stuck it where he could see it while working. Besides, I've got backup. The dead don't fight battles. No, but they remind us why we fight them. He pointed at Mike's grinning face. He'd find this hilarious, intergalactic incident over tacos. He once started a bar fight over whether corn or flour tortillas were superior. Which are superior? Zaya asked. Corn for authenticity, flour for structural integrity. Luke began dicing onions with practiced efficiency. But Mike insisted corn all the way, said flour was for quitters. He was wrong. Luke laughed, surprised that he could, hours before potential death. You know what? Yeah, he was, but he'd defend his wrong opinion until his last breath. That's what made him Mike. And what makes you Luke? He considered while his hands worked. I don't know anymore. 3 days ago I was nobody going nowhere. Now I'm Zarhai, Anira supplied. Guardian, father, bridge between worlds. I'm a guy with a food truck and bad feet. You're the human who gave his last possession to a stranger, Zaya corrected. In my culture, that makes you either holy or insane. Why not both? Dawn arrived like a hangover, slow, inevitable, and unwelcome. The sky had barely started to lighten when crowds began gathering outside the barriers. Every news channel on Earth had cameras pointed at Luke's truck. The alien ships, both Vorthani and Scorthian, hung lower, their presence turning the morning air thick and electric. General Thompson pushed through the perimeter. Martinez, the president wants to know if you need anything. Military support, weapons, a way out of this insane. I need green chilies. Luke didn't look up from his prep. The good ones from Hatch, not that California crap. You're about to fight for Earth's survival and you want chilies. Can't make proper suicide tacos without proper chilies, General. Thompson stared at him, then spoke into his radio. Get me a helicopter to New Mexico. Yes, now. Yes, I'm serious. Grax arrived exactly at dawn, materializing in front of the truck with an honor guard of scarred Scorthian warriors. The warlord had dressed for war, armor that seemed to absorb light, weapons that violated several laws of physics just by existing. His burned face showed nothing but contempt. You prepared all night, primitive. I can smell your fear sweat. That's the onions. Luke stepped out of his truck, wearing his marine shirt and an apron that said, Kiss the Cook, in faded letters. Ready when you are. The terms of Tornval must be witnessed. Grax gestured, and dozens of alien representatives appeared, species Luke couldn't name, colors that shouldn't exist, forms that challenge geometry. I choose the nature of combat. As is your right, I choose culinary achievement. Grax's smile could have curdled milk at 50 paces. Each prepares one dish. The witnesses judge. Failure means death. Luke heard Zaya's sharp intake of breath. This was what they'd hoped for, but hearing it made real set his hands shaking. Accepted. You seem unsurprised. I figured you'd want to beat me at my own game. It's what I do. Luke returned to his truck. One dish, one chance. Let's cook. What followed was the strangest hour of Luke's life, and that included finding a purple alien child behind a dumpster. Grax cooked with technology that shouldn't exist, ingredients appearing from nowhere, temperatures that defied thermodynamics, techniques that belonged in science fiction. His dish emerged as something beautiful and terrible, plated on what looked like condensed starlight. Luke made tacos. Not just any tacos, the Carolina Reaper suicide tacos that had made grown Marines cry, but with modifications. The Thraven honey Zaya had given him, just a drop mixed into the lime crema. cilantro chopped with the knife Mike had given him for his birthday, the ghost pepper sauce Anira had declared her favorite, despite it being objectively insane for a 7-year-old to like. As he worked, he talked, not to the cameras or the witnesses, but to the food itself. This cilantro? My mom grew it in coffee cans on our fire escape, said food without herbs was just survival. She worked 3 jobs but always made dinner from scratch. He placed the cilantro carefully, remembering her hands. The limes for Mike. He'd squeeze half a bottle on anything. Said it covered the taste of MREs. Last meal we shared, he used so much lime the fish tacos turned into soup. Each ingredient became memory, each step a story. The peppers aren't about heat. They're about feeling something. After Mike died, I couldn't taste anything for months. Everything was cardboard. Then I bit into a Carolina Reaper by accident, grabbed the wrong pepper at the market, cried for an hour, but I felt something. Sometimes pain's better than nothing. He looked directly at Grax as he said it. And this? He held up the ghost pepper sauce. This is for a little girl who lost everything but still chose to trust, who saw a stranger with ugly shoes and empty pockets and decided he was worth saving. Anira made a sound, half sob, half laugh. Luke plated 3 tacos with the care of a heart surgeon. Simple, unpretentious, real. Earth food isn't about perfection. It's about sharing, about taking what you have and making it enough for everyone. It's messy and chaotic, and sometimes it burns your mouth, but it's honest. He set the plate between himself and Grax. It's connection. The witnesses murmured in languages Luke couldn't understand. Grax's creation sat on its impossible plate, beautiful as a nebula. Luke's tacos looked like tacos. We judge, one of the witnesses said, a being that looked like what would happen if mathematics became sentient. Each creator must consume the other's offering. Luke reached for Grax's dish. It tasted like perfection, like the idealized concept of flavor filtered through technology and technique. It was flawless. It was also empty. Grax picked up a taco with hands that could crush steel. His black gold eyes met Luke's. If this is poison, it's not poison. It's memory. Grax bit into the taco. His face changed immediately, not from the heat, though Luke could see that hit too. Something deeper shifted. His eyes went wide, then closed. When they opened, tears ran down his burned cheeks. This taste, his voice broke. Taylor loved spiced food, said it made her tongue dance. I told her she was too young, but she'd sneak bites anyway, laugh when her eyes watered. Food is memory, Luke said quietly. Every dish carries the ghost of every time it was shared. Grax took another bite. His armor-clad shoulders shook. She would have loved this, the heat like home's binary suns, the sweet beneath like hidden water, the comfort despite the pain. That's the point, not to hide from pain, but to transform it. Luke pushed the 3rd taco toward him. Your turn to transform something. My people are dying. So were mine, 3 days ago. We were dying of isolation, thinking we were alone in the universe. Now we're not. Luke gestured at the witnesses, the cameras, the whole impossible scene. Maybe your people don't need just the Eden worlds. Maybe they need this: connection, trade, hope that isn't stolen but shared. Grax finished the 3rd taco in silence. Then he spoke, his voice carrying across all broadcasts. I yield. The simple words rippled outward. The witnesses stood, or whatever their equivalent was. The cameras zoomed in. Zaya made a sound that might have been prayer. Not because I lost, Grax continued, but because winning would mean nothing. This human, this primitive, offers what my rage blindsided me to, not victory, but possibility. He turned to the witnesses. I call for the concordance of worlds. Let Earth stand as neutral ground. Let its food become our common language. Let this human's recipes be gifted freely to all who hunger. Witnessed, the mathematical being said. Witnessed, echoed dozens of impossible voices. Admiral Korthak materialized beside his daughter. The Vorthani Empire agrees. Earth will be protected, its sovereignty guaranteed. In exchange for, Luke asked, because there was always a catch. In exchange for you keeping your promise, teaching us connection. Korthak's scarred face almost smiled. Also, my daughter insists on remaining as your ward. She's not my ward. She's my kid now. Luke picked up Anira, who wrapped her arms around his neck. That okay with everyone? That's perfect, Anira whispered. The crowds erupted. The barriers fell as people flooded forward, not in panic but in celebration. Someone started playing music. Others began dancing. Austin had turned into the galaxy's strangest block party. So, Zaya said, appearing at Luke's elbow, you survived. Disappointed? Relieved. She pulled him into a kiss that should have been awkward. Height difference, species difference, the fact that several billion people were watching. Instead, it felt like coming home after a long deployment. When they separated, Luke's brain took several seconds to restart. Did we just... Vorthani mate for life, Zaya said. Consider yourself claimed. I didn't agree to. You raised a child with me for 3 days. By our law, we're already bonded. She smiled, and it transformed her face from warrior to woman. Besides, someone needs to teach you to cook for species with different taste receptors. Is everyone just deciding I'm married now? Yes, Anira said. Also, Grax wants to apprentice under you. Luke looked at the warlord, who stood awkwardly by the truck. You want to learn to make tacos? I want to learn to make connection. Grax's burned face held something that hadn't been there before, hope. Your planet's techniques for growing food in poisoned soil could save Talon. Your spices could make survival into living. I don't know anything about terraforming, but you know about transforming pain into purpose. Grax gestured at Mike's photo, still visible in the truck. Teach me that. Luke looked around, at the celebrating crowd, the alien witnesses mingling with humans, the news crews trying to make sense of it all. General Thompson was teaching a Meridani trader to fist bump. Someone had given a Zephyrian a baseball cap. The mathematical being was attempting to understand the concept of the wave. 6 months, Luke said. Give me 6 months to figure this out. 6 months later. The lunch rush at Luke's last chance interstellar made his old struggles seem quaint. Order up, Luke called, sliding plates through the service window. 3 classic Earth, 2 Vorthani fusion, and 1 Scorthian flame special. Grax worked the second grill, his massive hands surprisingly delicate with the spatula. He'd learned that Earth chilies grew well in Talon soil when mixed with their native fungi. His people were eating again, not just surviving but enjoying food for the first time in a generation. Table 12 complains the heat level is insufficient, Zaya reported, managing the front of house with military efficiency. She traded her armor for jeans and a tank top that said security in 12 languages. Tell them we're not responsible for species with asbestos taste buds, Luke replied. Dad, Anira called from the register, where she was teaching a young Chronari about exact change. The documentary people want to know if you'll answer more questions. Tell them I'm busy. The documentary crew had been following them for weeks, creating what they called the definitive account of Earth's first contact. Luke thought they were making a comedy. The lunch rush finally slowed around 2. Luke stepped out to breathe, finding Austin's skyline forever changed. Alien ships parked alongside buildings like architectural additions. The streets bustled with a dozen species, all heading to or from food trucks that had proliferated like mushrooms after rain. You did this, Zaya said, joining him. I made tacos. You made hope. She took his hand. They'd figured out how to make the height difference work, mostly. The Galactic Council is calling it the Taco Doctrine, using food as the basis for interspecies diplomacy. That's a terrible name. The alternatives were worse. Someone suggested the Martinez method. Absolutely not. Anira appeared between them, now wearing human clothes but keeping Mike's shoes, which she'd grown into. The president's calling again. Wants to give you another medal. Tell him I'm closed on Tuesdays. It's Thursday. Then tell him I'm very confused about Earth days. They stood together, a failed Marine, a purple giant warrior, and a child who held the memory of worlds, watching the impossible become ordinary. Mike would have loved this, Luke said. He did love it, Anira corrected. Every choice he made led here. His shoes brought us together. His death taught you to see beyond survival. His memory keeps you grounded when the universe tries to make you a hero. I'm not a hero. I just make really good tacos, Zaya and Anira said in unison. Luke laughed. Yeah, really, really good tacos. A Scorthian child tugged at Luke's apron, holding up currency that looked like crystallized light. Can I have what Taylor would have liked? Luke's throat tightened. Grax had been telling stories of his daughter, keeping her memory alive through food. Coming right up, kid. Extra lime, hold the sadness. As he headed back to the truck, Luke caught sight of the new sign Anira had designed. Luke's Last Chance Interstellar, where the universe comes for tacos and stays for family. Below it, in smaller letters, shoes optional, kindness required. Mike would definitely have loved this,